Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky will speak at U Congress on Wednesday, the latest video stop of the actor-turned-warlord, as he employs major Western legislatures as a global stage to orchestrate support for the landslide invasion of Russia. Zelensky's live-streamed speech at the United States Capitol will be among the most important in a unique and very public strategy in his fight to stop Russia. Invoking Winston Churchill in Hamlet last week, he asked the British House of Commons whether Ukraine should be or not be. On Tuesday, he appealed to Dear Justin as he addressed the Canadian Parliament and Prime Minister Trudeau. Appearing in his now iconic military green t-shirt, Zelensky called on European Union leaders at the start of the war to do the political unthinkable and fast-track Ukrainian members, and then asked for more help to save his young democracy than how many world leaders have so far pledged to make. It was a man showing leadership while at the same time keeping his calm in the toughest of circumstances, said Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte about the address to the Europeans. I have to say, it had an enormous impact on all the leaders. As 3 weeks of increasingly ferocious war approached, Zelensky used his public campaign to garner global attention that may have faded amid the coronavirus pandemic and post-war fatigue. The long American war in Afghanistan. Instead, video appearances of Zelensky beam the boyish but unshaven president to families and smartphones around the world as he speaks from unknown places in Kyiv as Russia bombs his country, a heroic figure at the center of what many consider to be the greatest threat to European security since World War II. Nearly 3 million refugees have fled Ukraine, the fastest exodus in modern times. When Zelensky airs in the U.S. Capitol, his speech could most likely put him at odds with President Joe Biden's halt before providing a no-fly zone or facilitating the transfer of military aircraft from neighboring Poland, to which Zelensky begs since the outbreak of the war. Zelensky wants the West to close the skies a lie now in pop culture to prevent Russian airstrikes ravaging his country, perhaps most dramatically during last week's attack on a maternity hospital when pregnant women fled for their lives. I know he will ask for more help, said Senator Elizabeth. Congress was ready to impose economic sanctions and beyond. At first, the White House resisted calls from Congress to ban imports of Russian oil into the United States. He then held back legislation to revoke Russia's normal trade status before moving on to both. He rejected congressional efforts to shut down the Nord Stream 2 energy pipeline, so he led the allies to shut it down. Can Zelensky's address generate more? Biden has a very hard line to toe here, and that's nobody wants to start World War III, Senator Warren said. To keep options on the table. Ukrainians are fighting for their lives and also fighting for democracy in the world. Biden has insisted there will be no U troops on the ground in Ukraine and has also resisted Zelensky's incessant demands for risky fighter jets, which could escalate into a direct confrontation with armed Russia. Nuclear weapon direct conflict between NATO and Russia is World War III, Biden said. The Pentagon rejected an offer from NATO ally Poland to transfer its Soviet MiGs to a US base in Germany for transfer back to Ukraine. They are perplexed, in any case, by Zelensky's request for more warplanes. They say Ukraine often doesn't fly the planes it currently has, while making good use of the Stingers and other weapons the West provides. Although Zelensky and Biden speak on the phone almost every day, the Ukrainian president has found a potentially more receptive audience in Congress. It won't be the first time he's spoken directly to members of the House and Senate, who have remained remarkably united in their support for Ukraine, with a sense of commitment to do everything in the fight against Russia. Nearly 2 weeks ago, Zelensky issued a desperate plea to some 300 lawmakers and staffers in a private phone call that if they can't enforce a no-fly zone, at least send more planes. We believe the United States needs to do more, said Senator Roger Wicker, returning from a weekend visit with other lawmakers in Poland. We must do what we must to facilitate the delivery of Russian-made MiGs to Ukrainian fighter pilots so they can fight this war on their own. Congress has already approved $13.6 billion in military and humanitarian aid for Ukraine. A larger bill signed by Biden and became law on Tuesday, but lawmakers expect more help will be needed. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said Zelensky asked for help to rebuild his country during their conversation last week. It was during this phone call that Zelensky asked for the opportunity to speak in the U.S. Congress, which the Democratic leader readily accepted. The Ukrainian MP's Country Support Committee had previously called for something similar. Congress, our country and the world stand in awe of the people of Ukraine, Pelosi and Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said Monday in a statement announcing the speech. They said Congress remains steadfast in our commitment to support Ukraine in the face of Putin's cruel and diabolical aggression. Zelensky's next step could be Spain. On Tuesday, the president of the Spanish Congress of Deputies invited the Ukrainian president to address Spanish lawmakers via video link. In a letter to Zelensky, Rapporteur Marek Selbadat wrote that the address will be a magnificent opportunity for the chamber, while the Spanish people and the thousands of Ukrainians living in Spain to hear your message and express our strongest support. That's all for now. Stay tuned and subscribe to White House Politics for more political news and updates.